Hey guys, I'm back. Thank you for joining me once again. If you're new here, welcome. I've had a few new subscribers sign on lately, so thank you so much for that. Hopefully you enjoy this video today. It's going to be a fun one. I picked up a cool piece of driftwood that I found while I was at a beach party a couple weeks ago, and I was looking for feedback and suggestions about what you guys might want to see me mount on it. And after some thought, I decided I'm going to go with a Staghorn Fern. Now, Staghorn Ferns are this really cool looking epiphytic fern that look really awesome mounted. And I've wanted one for a while, so I'm going to go with it. It's a nice big piece of driftwood, and Staghorn Ferns can grow to be pretty good sized plants, so it just kind of makes sense to me. But a lot of the principles are the same, whether you're mounting an orchid or an epiphytic fern, or at least similar. So hopefully this will still be useful to you guys as a tutorial if you're looking to learn how to mount orchids. So thank you for joining me once again. I'm gonna bring you into the Lyman Estate greenhouse. They have these really awesome, perfectly sized little Staghorn Ferns, and we're gonna go grab one. This is the same greenhouse where I filmed that walkthrough tour a couple weeks ago, so you can go look that up if you want to see a little bit more about what they have to offer at the Lyman Estate. But with that said, let's go ahead and head in and check it out. Here is their resident Staghorn Fern. So cool. They actually have it potted, and they can be grown potted or in a basket or in a mount. It just depends on your growing conditions and how you want to care for it and stuff. But look how cool they are. You see where they get the name Staghorn Fern. Especially mounted on a wall, they look really awesome. So this will give you an idea of what the fully grown ones can look like. But let's go check out the little baby ones. Here they are. They're so cute when they're little. There's a couple more mixed in here. I'm gonna have a pretty hard time picking one. Actually, I'm trying to picture it mounted. That one's pretty healthy looking though. Let's check out the other ones real quick. I think I'm gonna have to go with this one. I just think it looks super healthy. It's got nice kind of shape to it. It looks like it's got new growth coming from a couple different ends on it. And I think it'll look perfect mounted. So let's grab this one. So I tried really hard to walk out of there without buying an orchid. I tried really hard to have self-control. I tried really hard to walk past the orchids and just go straight to the Staghorn Ferns. Because that's what I went there for. I didn't go there for an orchid. I went there for a Staghorn Fern. But I bought an orchid. I also got the Staghorn Fern, so, you know, it was still successful. But how could I walk past this little Angraecum eichlerianum? You guys know how obsessed I am with Angraecums. How could I pass this guy up? So, sorry, not sorry, no regrets. Very cute little Angraecum. So, successful. We got ourselves a gorgeous Staghorn Fern, which I will give you a closer look at in a little bit. But let's head home so we can get started. Alright guys, so the first thing you will need is your green pet, whether it be a orchid or a cool Staghorn Fern like this. Couple fun facts about Staghorn Ferns. They are a fern, which is different from other plants in a lot of ways, but a few kind of key differences. The leaves on ferns are typically referred to as fronds. The Staghorn Fern in particular has two different types of fronds. There are fertile fronds, which are used in like reproduction, And then there's these. See these brown kind of dead looking ones? These are called basal fronds, or I've heard them called like a foot. And some people will see this on a staghorn and think that their fern is dying or dropping leaves. These ferns serve a very particular purpose. It's not for reproduction. They're not fertile, as I said. They form kind of like a shield. They're also referred to as shield fronds sometimes. It forms this kind of plate that helps to sort of anchor the plant in position, as they are epiphytes. And it kind of encases the root ball, so they grow around the base of the plant, while these fronds are the ones that actually grow up and out, and these ones are used for reproduction. Ferns don't flower, or they don't reproduce the way flowering plants do. They actually produce spores, which are like very small, like seeds, but they actually grow on the underside of the leaves and are dispersed that way. Ferns are really interesting plants, and you know, I'm not an expert. After doing this, I'm definitely going to read up quite a bit on ferns and the staghorn fern in particular, but those are just a few interesting facts about them. I really loved this particular plant. The other ones were nice too, but this one seems to have a nice mix of longer fronds that give it some kind of reach, but it's also still quite bushy and has like a lot of kind of shorter, kind of dense growth towards the center, so it's kind of the best of both worlds. I didn't want one that was too long and leggy, but I also wanted it to have some kind of length and stuff, so this one's just gorgeous. This is our piece of driftwood. Now, I did find this on the beach of a saltwater ocean. If you are using driftwood from the beach, you do need to wash it and soak it thoroughly multiple times. Salts can be devastating to plants, especially something like a fern that have pretty fine roots. And you know, orchids have thick roots, but orchid roots are also sensitive to salts. So that's something to keep in mind. I cleaned and soaked this pretty thoroughly. Believe it or not, this plant's actually like quite big for this piece of driftwood. I kind of remembered this being a bit bigger, or perhaps the fern's just a bit bigger now that I look at it next to the driftwood, but I think it'll still work out fine. And when the fern outgrows this mount, most people will typically just kind of slap this onto a bigger piece of wood, which may or may not end up looking super nice or naturalistic, but I'm not worried about it. The one thing I haven't done either is drill a hole in this to be able to hang it. I'm just gonna go ahead and mount it and worry about that afterwards. I don't have a drill, but I have friends who have one, so I'll just borrow one at some point. In the meantime, I'll just maybe stand this up in a pot or something, or just lean it, or even, you know, lay it flat. I'm not worried about that, but eventually, you know, I would need to do that. So if you're gonna be mounting a plant, that's something you wanna keep in mind, of course, is how you're actually gonna hang it. But that's our driftwood. Now, I bought a couple different types of like twine to secure it. Most people use fishing line because it's very thin and it's virtually invisible. So I bought this, which is similar. It's actually a bit thicker, and I imagine it might be a bit hard to tie, but it was the only thing they had at the hardware store. I didn't feel like going somewhere particularly to hunt down fishing line. I don't really care if it's not super visually appealing. Like if I can see the twine a bit, I'm not too worried about it. But I also picked up some like just like hemp fiber twine. This would be quite visible, and it might not be everyone's first option for mounting, but it's natural and it's naturalistic looking. You know, it wouldn't be terribly ugly. I wouldn't mind. So I bought both of them in case this one doesn't work out. I'm probably gonna try to use this first. One of the reasons I didn't go with actual fishing line is it's so thin that I didn't want it to cut through any part of the plant. And that's usually not an issue, especially with orchids that have kind of like woodier kind of parts, but these a fern kind of has like softer parts to it, and I could see fishing line, if I tied it tight enough, kind of making cuts in it where that I wouldn't be as concerned about that with orchids. So that's why I got something that's a bit thicker, as well as the twine. So we're just gonna roll with it and just see how it goes. We'll figure it out. I also have some scissors, and you're gonna want a plastic bag, probably just for like scraps and trash and things like that. One thing I forgot to mention, moss. So if you're familiar with mounting anything like orchids, you would know that sometimes orchids will require that you add some type of water retentive media to put around the base of the plant. Mounts will virtually always dry out faster than a pot will, because there's typically just less media to hold water, and they're kind of up off the ground in open air where things will just typically dry out faster. So Staghorn ferns are moisture loving plants. So yeah, that's something I wanted to mention too. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is unpot our plants. There we go. Very, very spongy. Pretty full of roots. Okay, so I have removed my fern from the pot. It's got nice dense roots there. And I kind of pulled the roots apart a bit and kind of teased a bit of media out of it. I'm sure it won't appreciate having its roots disturbed like that, but it was kind of this giant square lump from being in the pot, so I had to break it up a little bit in order to get it to kind of sit against the mount properly. But I think I kind of see how I want it to be positioned. So I'm just gonna mess around with this a little bit more until I get the positioning just right, and then we will get started tying it up. Okay, so a quick little update here. So I think what my plan is going to be, I have used the thicker twine to kind of tie it off as sort of like a base. I'm going to be adding a lot more support. I'm going to be adding moss and then more string, but this is just kind of the first kind of anchor to tie it down. So I've tied it down kind of just across the root ball here, and then I'll do another kind of towards the other end of the plant. So we're just gonna have to see how it goes. These things aren't an exact science. Every plant is kind of shaped differently. Every mount is, you know, gonna be a different material and stuff. So you kind of just have to dive in and get your hands dirty. And to be honest, mounting things is not rocket science. The hardest thing about it is just the mechanics of like tying it, of securing it to the mount. And that's just a matter of finding kind of like the rhizome where the best part to lay your twine is across the plant without hurting it or cutting off circulation to new growths and things like that. I mean, that's really all there is to it. Other than that, it's just aesthetics and stuff. So okay, just to show you a bit of the progress, I have decided to use quite a bit of moss. I think it's probably for the best. It looks nice too. I stuffed quite a bit around it. Now, I'm gonna have to see how this goes. I will have to lay quite a bit of string kind of across it to try to keep the moss in place, as well as to kind of anchor the plant. So, all right guys, so I actually ended up going a slightly different route. Initially, one of my goals was to try to conceal the yarn as much as possible. Some people, when they're mounting a plant, they want it to look naturalistic, and they want it to look as though the plant has attached itself naturally, and you know, they try to conceal the twine. And that was something I originally was planning on doing. If I had been committed enough, maybe I could have done that, where I could have used less of the yarn. But the more I thought about it, this is a pretty heavy, bulky plant. I want it to be secure. I want it to be able to attach enough moss to the base that it would hold significant moisture. So I just felt that the well-being of the plant was kind of more important than trying to use less yarn. So I kind of just decided to go nuts with the yarn and just really secure it on there. And I actually, I don't mind the way that looks. I really don't. And the plant's so nice and bushy that it's not going to stand out too much. I mean, from the side you can see it, but the thing that's nice about these like natural fiber yarns is that it'll kind of end up probably growing some algae on it. I might get some moss actually covering the yarn. The yarn will sort of break down over time. The plant will kind of grow over it and sort of cover it up. So I really don't mind the way it looks. And I don't want bits of moss kind of falling everywhere. So I thought I'd just really wrap the hell out of it and just get it really nice and secure. So that's actually probably just about done. I may end up adding some final touches. I might stuff some bits of moss in there, maybe add a bit more yarn if I feel like it's missing some, but I'm pretty pleased with the way this looks. Let me put this down, get a few better shots of it for you guys, and then we'll wrap this up. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. This was really fun. I'm so happy with the way this turned out. I'm really glad I decided to do it. So thank you guys so much for coming along for the ride with me. I also wanted to say thank you. I've had quite a few new subscribers sign on over the last week or so, which means a lot to me. Thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, I would really love it if you would. I've been trying to put in more time and effort and creativity into my videos, so if you decide to subscribe and stick around, I know you'll have a good time. So thank you again so much, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.